Yeah.
To war! To battle!
Oh, back the fuck up.
You should be thankful he didn't throw you into a stew like he did your partner.
There we go. Hey, y'all. Why do I have... Hold on. Let me get you to this. Sorry, background music, but I'm gonna have you listen to... There's a... Latin.
Io mittere, profundissimum, inferni detractos.
That's it, and that's what she looks. Cause, yeah, she's a succubus. A pair of guards rushed forward, carrying a flailing imp demon who was caught in chains, and forcefully slammed him down in front of Diana. She glared down at him and gripped onto one of his horns, pulling him to his knees.
You should be thankful we didn't throw you into a stew like we did your partner.
Going to look like Latin? No. With that whisper, Diana dragged her nails across the imp's neck, slicing open 5 large gashes on his throat, making him garble out a painful, bubbly cry. Diana, however, kept holding his head up, focusing on the blood that poured from him, and guiding the energy that emanated from it towards the castle. With a flash, a large purple and red orb barrier that surrounded the castle shattered, fading into the air. The barrier that held the demon lord at bay was finally open, allowing us to charge in and end this once and for all. Diana summoned her saber, letting the shine brilliantly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed into a set of demonic wings. I could only stare, jaw dropped, as Diana's body lifted off the ground and began to fly over the legion, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
Yeah. At her final command, Diana's wings pulsated in the air, flapping gracefully as she swooped down and forward. She was charging and flying for the castle walls, saber bared and ready to spill blood. As the armies below began to bellow and march forward, Rabbit took hold of my shoulder and turned me away from the castle to face her.
Come, we must hurry.
There's Sam. He's the one with the green horns who look like are handlebars. As you can see, yeah. But I love Rabbit. She's so pretty, isn't she? Lag. Sorry to hear that. Understanding the need for urgency, I nodded and rushed forward with the rest of the incubi towards the slope down the mountainside.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west. We've done what we can.
We got a straight line to that bastard.
Thank you, Sam.
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
Thank you. I'm going to plug these in. Have them laying next to my microphone so you can hear it. There you go. Moving shit out of the way. That should be good. I nodded, feeling the need to rush nip at my heels, pushing me forward. My fiancé seemed to agree, gripping my hand and walked at my pace alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost. You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
Okay, Faye. Faye just looks so cute. In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. So, this is it.
Remember your surroundings and protect each other.
Thank you, James. I'm gonna put on one of my other chokers right now. Because with it, my boyfriend got me some chokers. I can't even put it on. My guy Sim is nude. How about him? He has no pants at all, and he's a demon. Try that.
Be careful, alright? Make sure you stay safe.
I love Iridessa. Her outfit is just amazing. She is so cute. What's Crawford doing in my neighborhood?
Princess, brother, we'll see you in the end.
Oh my god, Eric, yes, I said bye. Days of Nudeness. Hey, guess who the woman's name is?
We have faith in you. You'll make it there, and we'll return to the human world soon.
Irene. That's the name of the woman, Irene. Yep.
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Matthew. Look at Matthew. Just, oh my god, yes.
Make sure you kick some serious ass. Show that old goat what he gets for messing with you.
Thank you, Norin. Who's taking you home? I don't know.
We'll win this.
Damien!
We know we can.
You can do this. We'll see you soon, okay?
Yes, Twyla. I smiled. Despite the nerves running through my body, I held onto my fiancé's hand and gave it a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked to the tree line, took a breath, and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me to not lose sight of me. The journey was surprisingly uninterrupted. The sound of the war clashed beside us, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume, but I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. Before I could, however, I was pulled back by my fiancé, barely missing an arrow flying past my nose. Whoa! I quickly turned my head and spotted a small group of imps creeping towards me, with one reloading his bow with another arrow. I quickly grabbed my incubus and focused on making us become one with the shadows of the trees we were under. As the dark consumed our bodies, I felt my energy pulse from the amount being used. Still, I successfully dragged us both into the shadow plane.
What the hell?
Yes, Sam. I looked back to him and smiled with a nod, knowing that he was completely unaware of what I had learned in my training. After all, he had been focusing on improving himself. I lowered my hand to his and grasped it, rushing forward and pulling him along. He managed to trip a bit before following along, keeping my pace. Even as some hideaway scouts trickling shoulders came in our path, we simply ran through them unseen. It took the man behind me a bit to take in, but he quickly adjusted, knowing that now wasn't the time to focus on that. However, felt my energy quickly drain. I was maintaining two people in the shadow plane. After all, it only made sense that it would use more energy. Still, I wanted to get as far as I could before returning to the real world. I gripped onto my incubus's hand began to wane, slowing my run and feeling a heavy wave of dizziness consume my mind. Soon enough, warmth returned to my body and we were both sent back to the corporeal demon world. Of course, it couldn't have been a perfect straight journey without a couple final guards at the edge of the tree line waiting for us. A band of remaining imps caught my eye, taking in that I had successfully maneuvered around their lines and had reached them. I grimaced and glared at the end, seeing the group of 3 rush at us despite the weak feeling in my knees. However, I was going to defend my incubus as much as I could. I focused once more on making a shadow sword appear in my hand. As the blade jutted out from the handle that appeared in my palm, I grasped the blade and rushed forward with a battle cry. They seemed to stare in shock at my bravery, taken by surprise as I arched my blade through the air, slicing one almost completely open. As it fell, I didn't give the others a chance to shake away their surprise. Stepping to the side and swinging once more at the head of an imp next to my fallen victim, the blade managed to rip through the imp's face, and down he fell with ease. The third dropped his weapon in absolute horror, falling for my intimidation kills. However, I couldn't bring myself to be merciful to the things that had dragged me into this world and trapped me here. I lunged forward and ran my sword into his face, skewering him to the hilt. His body flailed before going limp, causing me to drop the blade from the sheer weight. As he fell... No. As he fell, the sword faded away, leaving me with 3 dead bodies around me. That was all I could do before my energy was expended and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Oh shit! Are you okay?
Thank you, Sam. Huh? I looked up to see Sam staring down at me with a deeply concerned face. Had to tighten my thing on my microphone. Showing me the deeply concerned gaze. We were safe at the moment, so I merely smiled up at him with a nod. I'm fine. I promise to protect you like you protect me. Dun dun dun! Sam pressed his lips together and shook his head, glaring down at me before wrapping his arms fully around me and hugging me to him.
You fucking doofus.
I am a yellow chocobo. I am Doppler. I hugged him back, feeling relief that we had finally arrived at the castle and were about to rush in. Hold on, I'm going to turn this up. There we go. I hugged him, feeling the relief that we finally made it to the castle and were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, Sam lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
You gonna be okay?
I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle and felt a rush of determination run through me. Let's go finish this. With that, Sam and I raced forward. The final battle had begun. At the gates, however, stood a figure that seemed to pose almost pridefully in our path. Sam and I stopped our run and took in who was standing in our way. For some reason, he seemed familiar. I'm turning my volume down a couple notches. Really, yeah, that'll be good. Because with it, he laughs really loudly. Who?
Finally, you showed up.
Alex! Yes, he's returned from Seduce Me 1. That voice. My mind finally clicked, linking the voice to a memory I wish I had forgotten. However, it couldn't have been. No way! Alex! Sam began to grow almost animalistically as the figure stepped out of the shadow of the gate. His face was covered by a terrifying devil mask, but I recognized him despite the fact. His white hair, his red skin. There's no way it could have been.
Missed me, bitch?
Mallet.
Ah.
Mallet.
Malix. At the sound of his name, Malix reached up and removed the mask from his face, revealing a large amount of scars and wounds that were hidden away. Despite this, there was also a smirk placed from ear to ear across Malix's cheeks.
You're supposed to be dead!
You didn't think I actually died, did you? Only pussy little boys like you can get taken out like that.
Yep. Yep. My heart froze at the fact that he was still alive. It couldn't have been. I had seen what had happened to him. He was supposed to be dead. Malix inhaled a deep breath and stretched out his arms, looking around at with the largest grin on his face before turning to Sam.
Isn't this the most brutal war you've ever seen? Legions killing each other for no goddamn reason other than to rule this pathetic plane. It makes me want to make popcorn and watch the bloodshed.
He is so evil, it's not even funny. Sam glared hard at Malix, taking a step forward to him. Malix, however, cackled in response and locked eyes with the incubus.
Of course. I came here for a reason. I can't just sit on my ass and watch. Too bad, though. This is some great entertainment.
As you can see, yeah.
Then why are you here, asswipe? Got a real death wish this time?
What makes you think you can kill me? Besides, aren't you trying to save energy to fight your old man?
Malix stuffed his hands in his pockets and leaned back, puffing his chest out and flaunting a burnt insignia on his chest.
I got sent here by the head of hell himself, straight from the top. And I got the best seats in the house to the bloodiest war this plane has ever seen.
What, the Lord of what? Satan himself? Sam chuckled, cracking his knuckles.
Funny. I thought Satan only gave a shit about devils who didn't get their faces beaten in. Seems like he's getting soft.
Mal's gonna have to have some ice for that burn. Instantly, Malix's face shifted to an angry scowl, making the smirk on Sam's face widen.
Now that you're all hot and bothered, wanna tell me what you're up to before I send you back with your head up your ass?
Thank you.
Well, first I'm gonna paint these gates with your blood. Then wait until this war is over before I annihilate every fucking demon left and make this world a part of hell, just like it was supposed to be.
Yee.
You're funny for a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
Am I? You tried to kill me once before, dipshit, and look where that got you. Didn't work out so well, did it?
Malix stretched his neck to the side, making a loud, echoey crack sound reverberating through the air. I winced at the sound.
What makes this so funny is that it won't matter who wins this war in the end. Once it's over, I'll send for my boys and we'll fuck everyone up while they're celebrating. Ha! It'll be the bloodiest celebration this plane has ever seen! Then we'll seal this world and fuse it with hell, giving Satan a whole world full of demon soldiers and slaves at his disposal. The chaos of this world practically begged for a war to tear it apart. Now the abyssal planes will truly be a part of hell, like the fuck faces of heaven intended.
Not if I made sure you don't get the chance, fucker.
Malix cackled wildly, staring at Sam with a maddened expression. His eyes burned with insane bloodlust as he smirked and licked his teeth.
It's this world's destiny, shithead! Even humans know that demons belong in hell.
No, they don't. No, they don't! I found myself become angrier at Malix. Demons and devils were completely different, and demons, except for the Demon Lord, did not belong anywhere near hell.
Think about it, will ya? How many brainless humans think that demons come from hell? They put demons and devils together like they're no different from each other.
That is true.
It's inevitable. Every shit stain on this world is gonna bow down to the Lord of Hell, and we'll rip apart the gates of heaven together.
Sam stepped forward once more, cracking his knuckles at his side.
I am so sick of hearing your voice, Malix. Let's just end this.
Oh, I almost forgot the best part.
this made me really mad, and Sam? He's gonna lose his shit. Malix locked eyes with me, suddenly making a violent tremor run down my spine. His gaze spoke nothing but sadistic intent, and his words made his stare much more terrifying.
Just because I can, after we're done taking over this world, I'm gonna take that human bitch and make her the fuck toy of Satan's army.
How about Dad? If Malix defeats Sam and we don't win, I'm gonna become that to Satan's army. What do you think, Mystical Diaries? LOL, I died. Instantly, Sam vanished and reappeared in front of Malix, swinging a punch at him. However, he only made contact with a vanishing afterimage. Okay, I will be right back. I am going to probably let the dogs out because my mom's asleep. So for now, I hope the music is on. Let me see this. Yes, for now, enjoy the music. is back. Sam!
Payback time, fuckface!
Malex flew at Sam. Hold on. Malex flew at Sam's body like a bullet and began to slam his fists into him, the wall cracking and caving in around Sam's body. No, you was not. Stay back. A part of me knew better than to try. Malex probably had a weapon, and if I knew anything about Malex, he would use that against me without hesitation. I was out of energy and even defended myself from him. Defend myself from him, and I was sure that's why my grandfather's protection spell ran on. He wanted to beat Sam before trying to kill him. His pride was one downfall of his that I remembered very clearly. Malex continued to pound and punch upon punch onto Sam's body, making the body shape indentation in the castle. That castle wall that much deeper. However, with a small flash of red light, heat suddenly began to erupt from the center.
Get off!
Here comes Dragon Lord. Malex was suddenly forced back from a bright energy pulse as Sam pushed himself out of the hole he was trapped in. Around his body were green, flickering waves of energy pulsating in time with Sam's breath. I stared in shock, watching smoke rise from the creases of Sam's mouth. His nostrils and his nostrils, as he formed a large sword in his hands. Something in his eyes was burning and fueled it with rage.
Ooh, got some fire this time, huh?
Malex raised the arm at his side, forming a large sword with a red blade and chain connecting from the hilt to his belt.
Well, so do I.
Malex and Sam rushed at each other, slamming their swords into each other with reckless speed. I couldn't understand how Malex gained the ability to be as far as Sam. But something about the devil was very different from the first and the last time I had seen him. He was much more cocky, and there was some sort of strength within him that frightened me more than before. However, I felt that Sam still had the upper hand. There was no way he would let Malex win. Sam flipped over Malex and slashed his back, opening the fabric to his vest, but not deep enough to make contact with skin. Malex snarled and spun around, ventilating their clash of swords.
What's wrong, pretty boy? You seem to be holding back.
I don't need to waste energy killing you!
At last, their swords slammed against one another, a screech echoing through the air. Both pushed against one another, snarling into each other's faces.
It's pointless, Incubus. This world is fucked.
Tell that to Satan when you die!
What is that about? Sam suddenly lifted his foot up and jammed it into Malex's chest, kicking him back towards the castle wall. With a grunt and the crack of a broken rib reverberating through the air, Malex slid back and glared at Sam. However, the glare quickly died into a look of sadistic amusement as Malex rolled his shoulders and stood back up, as if just shrugging off the injury. Around his body grew a bright orange and red flame, causing waves of heat to pulse through the air around us.
You want a final showdown? You got it!
How about no, Malex? You can just go back to Satan and go fuck yourself. Sam, with a smirk of his own, stood tall at the fast-growing green.
It's over, Malex.
Stood tall with a fast-glowing green and red aura surrounding his form. The faint outline of dragons danced within the tongues of the flame as Sam seemed to charge a powerful attack.
It's over, Malex.
I watched as they both charged up their final attacks and forced their palms out towards each other. Green and red orbs of light shot out from each of their hands and collided, followed by brilliant rays that pushed them, forcing and into each other. I had to shut my eyes, blocking the flash of light from blinding my vision. Before I looked back up, seeing about the rage with a gasp. The air around the orbs pulsed heavily, whipping in all directions and fueled by both demon and the devil. The orbs ground into one another, lightning and fire bursting from the minuscule space between them. Both opponents had their eyes locked on each other as the earth around them bent and bowed from the collision of their power. The green orb seemed to quake with the shadows of dragons in its center, pressing against the wall of orbs, forcing it forward against its obstacle. Still, they were somehow equally matched. How could this be?
Give him your remaining energy, child. It is the only way to end this.
Okay, dragon. Okay, dragon. The voice of the dragons ran in my head, and as I stared at Sam, my face was tightened in pure anger and determination. No, his face was tightened in pure anger and determination. He was giving as much as he could, but I knew he was holding back to save energy for his father. I took a breath and quickly rushed over to Sam, grabbing a hold of his arms and feeling my body naturally pull energy from me. Gah!
What are you doing?
I felt so weird doing that. Ending this together. Sam stared at me, causing his orb to falter, but as I passed my energy onto him, Sam nodded and focused back on Malix, concentrating his orb forward with both his energy and mine. Malix would not win. I wouldn't let him.
What?
Ahaha. At last, the deadlock became pressed as Sam's orb pushed Malix back inch by inch, with each push getting stronger and faster. I could feel myself grow dizzy, but I didn't care. This was Malix's last stand.
What? No!
I glared hard at Malix as the clash between them became full of green energy, cutting through the devil's attack with ease. At last, the dragons reached their prey as the orb finally clashed into Malix's body, enveloping him in light.
No!
Those voice cracks, though. Sam and I held on to each other, letting go of the energy ray, and covered our eyes with Sam covered me in his arms. We dug our heels into the earth, struggling to stay in place as energy pushed us away from Malix. Gusts pressed and rushed against our bodies until, at last, the wind stopped. Sam and I slowly lifted our heads to look over, wanting to see what had become of Malix. There was no trace of him. The spot where he stood was charred, and the smoke that rose from the ashes of the area danced in the air like rising dragons. We did it. We killed him at last. I crumbled to my knees, slamming my hands to the ground to keep myself upright as I panted. I was worn out. If I hadn't been out of energy before, I definitely was now. Sam quickly dropped down beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulder and laying a careful hand on my arm.
Whoa! Are you okay?
Yeah. I nodded up, obviously lying, but I knew that we had more important things to do. Things to worry about. Malix was gone, hopefully dead for real, and we were at the castle gates, ready to charge in and fight the demon lord. As Sam and I looked up, we both locked our sights on the window exploding outward with figure flying out of it. As the figure flapped their wings and steadied themselves, they swooped back inside. Diana! I gripped Sam's arm and lifted myself up, knowing that we had to get inside.
You good?
Yeah, let's just go. Sam nodded before taking my hand and rushing forward, speeding through the twists and turns of the castle towards a large archway leading up to the tower, where we could hear Diana and the demon lord fighting above. Sam and I raced up the stairs of the tower, hearing the echo cries and clashes of steel bounce off the stone walls. My heart began to race as the sound of the weapons meeting stopped with Diana screaming. No, Diana!
Enough!
Sam and I finally reached the top, stared wide-eyed at the sight of the demon lord and Diana. The demon lord had Diana's throat in a hard grip as the other hand gripped onto her wings, her fingers digging into them roughly. We could barely react as the demon lord ripped them off Diana's back by pulling Diana's body in the opposite direction. Lagging out. Sorry to hear that, but you can always watch this later. No! The demon lord, basking in his success, lifted the torn wing into his mouth and let the blood dribble from the open wounds onto his tongue. I fought not to gag at the sight. Sam, however, shouted and made the room shake with his voice. His rage showed his feelings clearly, despite seeing the one who fathered him after years of separation.
Hey, shithead!
Demon Lord instantly peered over, locking his eyes onto Sam's form as Sam began to step forward. Appeasing with the new challenger, the Demon Lord licked his lips, tossed Diana to the side. Diana landed with a hard thud and slid across the floor, slamming against one of the stone frames and kept the stained glass of the room together. On her back were 2 large open wounds that were healing or fading away into her body like I expected. Diana!
Go check on her. This bastard is mine.
That's right, you take care of your father. Sam continued to walk forward as I nodded and rushed over to Diana. She struggled to push herself onto her hands, falling back onto the floor in failure as I approached. I gotcha, hold on.
Settle.
Settle! Sayonara's ship, it's gonna be ruined. Before my eyes, a small white light flashed beside us, revealing Settle. He quickly looked around before he looked down to Diana and rushed to her knees beside her.
Is that your...
Yes, Settle! Yes, Settle! Yes! I got onto my knees and helped Diana get onto her, seeing her worn and tired face. As she got up, she instantly fell into Seto's arms. Seto quickly wrapped his arm around Diana and kissed her head, most likely trying to feed her energy to heal. Her back wounds, despite the energy, were still not closing. All across her body were slash marks and bruises from the intense struggle, but I knew already that she had put up a good fight. Now it was Sam's turn. The Demon Lord raised his arm to his side, visually challenging his new opponent with a wide smirk on his face and scowl in his eyes.
So you want to die too? I always knew you were a disgrace.
Shut up, Mother. That's the father.
I've waited a long time to kick your ass.
Oh my god, that's a beautiful sight. Yes. Hold on, just... If you can hear that, just listen to the music. Sam glared hard at the Demon Lord before reaching up and summoning his sword. As he did, flames began to quickly engulf his body, twisting and shaping into multiple dragons that brought surprise and fear into the Demon Lord's eyes.
You will burn and fall into the darkest depths of the abyss where you belong.
Yes. The Demon Lord, however, snarled and summoned his own blade, ready to battle. There was no more room to place threats. Their blades would speak for them now. Sam and the Demon Lord rushed at each other, arching their backs, at each other and slamming their swords together. As they clashed, red lightning and wildfire shot out from impacts between them. I'm going to turn up the music because I love this. I listened to this when... I have this on SoundCloud for this song because Christopher Escalante, the voice of Ian, who's also the voice of Eric, made this music, and it was like, yes. This did not deter Sam and the Demon Lord from slashing and swinging again at each other, parrying over and over with murderous vigor. It was like watching fireworks go off in a massive storm. The flames around Sam began to circle around him and the Demon Lord, forming an inescapable ring around them. This was going to be the battle to the death, by flame or by sword. Neither opponent seemed to hold anything back. You're going to look like an Ian. No, I am not!
How? How did you get this power?
He earned it, bitch.
It doesn't matter how. All you need to know is that I'm gonna use it to kill you!
Thank you, Alejandro. Who is also the voice of Jean. Kagi Films is the voice actor of Jean, if you did not know. The Demon Lord grabbed a hold of Sam's sword and kicked Sam's head to make him release it. However, as the sword left Sam's hand, it vanished and reappeared in Sam's grip as if it belonged there. Using the opportunity, Sam slashed at the Demon Lord and carved a deep line into the Demon Lord's chest. The Demon Lord stepped back, gripping his chest as, before my eyes, the skin around the one began to burn and release black smoke. The Demon Lord snarled in reply, swinging his sword again at Sam. Turning it down. There we go.
You're dead!
The Demon Lord pummeled a barrage of slashes and swipes at Sam with his sword, only to be blocked and parried each time. I felt a hopeful smile grow on my face. We were going to win! The strange excitement of this situation filled my body with joy. I was going to go home and be with my family and friends and live in the human world. Sam and I were going to live happily ever after, and this was the door to get us there. We're going to go home. Sam and the Demon Lord jumped away from each other, glaring hard at one another as they began to circle each other.
Weak brat. Needing the power of a dragon to defeat me?
He earned it, bitch.
You don't fucking get it, do you? I don't just have the power of a dragon.
He is a dragon. My eyes couldn't believe what I was seeing. A pair of wings wreathed in flames suddenly erupting from Sam's back, lifting him into the air. Sam's voice boomed through the air, filled with magic, rage, and power.
I am a dragon!
Ooh, yes, he is a dragon. Sam raised his sword, causing it to become engulfed by red and green flame, before swinging it down onto the Demon Lord. As it clashed with the Demon Lord's sword, a burst of flame erupted from between the blades. Each block the Demon Lord had caused another and another burst to explode in his sight. Sparks and flames licked violently against his skin as he tried to defend himself from the dragon that was Sam. Soon enough, even the Demon Lord couldn't defend anymore. Sam knocked the Demon Lord's sword away, causing it to slide against the floor outside of the ring of fire.
No!
You just lost, boy.
It's over!
Sam swooped at the Demon Lord and jammed his blade into the Demon Lord's chest, making his resounding gasp of pain echo through the flames. The Demon Lord's eyes wavered, staring at the far wall as the flames around them began to die out. Black and red smoke rose from the blade, dancing around the Demon Lord's body and dissipating into the air above. He's dead.
Goodbye, old man.
Yes! Sam gripped his sword with both hands and yanked the sword out from his father's body, making the Demon Lord arch back before falling forward. Smoke continued to rise and engulf the Demon Lord's body as if it was beginning to cremate itself after death. As the Demon Lord let out his last breath, silence at last engulfed the room, only interrupted by a sound of Sam's labored breathing. It was over. It was finally over. I could feel tears well up in my eyes as the situation sank into my body, causing me to place my hands on the floor and stare into the dark marble. We did it. We really did it. I looked to Sam, seeing him land softly on the ground, while his wings vanished into clouds of smoke. As he turned to me, I could see exhaustion hit his body like a tidal wave. One step towards me brought him crashing down to his knees. Sam! Before I could even stand to run to him, Sam lifted his hand, laughing tiredly. Oh no!
I'm fine. Calm down.
My thing suddenly just turned off. I don't know why. I relaxed for the moment, relieved to know he was all right. I felt myself let out a sigh as I heard Diana chuckle beside me.
He wore you out that fast? You're not as tough as you look, brute.
Oh yeah, he's a brute demon. Sam chuckled and raised a middle finger at Diana, curling his shoulders over himself as he tried to breathe and relax from the whole ordeal. I feel myself laugh as I took in the situation as well. The war was over. It was...
I won't be the only one who dies here.
You don't know when to die, do you? I'm done with your shit. I'm like, bitch, get the fuck out of here. He whispered voice barely reaching my ears. It couldn't be. I looked over, horrified, as I saw the Demon Lord barely push up on his hands, glaring at me through the smoke surrounding him with crazed, almost psychotic eyes. He suddenly pointed his hand to me. Everyone else had only just turned around to see him.
Die!
No, the symbol! Within a mere breath of a second, a line of red lightning was fired straight at me from his outstretched hand. Within a mere breath of a second, a line of red lightning was fired straight at me from his outstretched hand. I didn't have time to react. I didn't have time to think. This time seemed to move in slow motion as a red bolt inched closer to my body, about to impact with my sternum. Sam, despite his speed, wasn't fast enough to stop its journey towards my chest. I could see my life flash before my eyes. It was over.
No!
Diana! I felt my body being pushed violently to the side, away from the incoming attack. I turned my head as I was pushed and stared wide-eyed at who was pushing me away. With a crash, the window behind us shattered, with Diana flying out of it. Diana, who had been beside me this entire fight, stared at the incoming attack as she took my place in its trajectory. There was no time to shout back. There wasn't any time to stop it from happening. I could only watch as the ray slammed against Diana's chest, forcing her body backwards into the stained glass behind us. My gaze followed Diana's body, seeing her look to me with a sad, teary-eyed smile. There was no words that could be said as she flew into the air. There was no way to grab her and pull her back. All I could do was watch as Diana's body arched back and plummeted downwards towards the decaying sea below. She no longer had her wings, so she couldn't fly to save herself. Poor Diana.
Any creature unfortunate enough to fall into that cursed stretch of water will be doomed to sink into an endless black void. They can never die due to the dark magic in the water, but they can never come back up. There's no saving them.
Why? No! I reached out, despite the futility of it, towards Diana, and watched her sink through the air as gravity took hold. I barely had time to blink as a figure ran past my body and pushed off the ledge in the window, zipping straight towards Diana's body. No! Seto!
Isaiah!
The Seto, no! The Diana ship is ruined now. The ship is ruined now. Seto, face pale as snow, had projected his body towards her and had managed to wrap her arms around her form, causing her to cling to him. Both demons, however, plummeted towards down the dark waters, quickly vanishing from sight. I couldn't even see the splash their bodies made as they hit the water's surface. Diana! I gripped the edge of the tower, not believing what I was seeing. This couldn't have been real. Diana and Seto were gone. Even as Seto called out her name, even as magic was on their side. How could they be gone? The garbled noise of the Demon Lord's throat being impaled barely caused me to turn and see Sam ran his sword through his father's neck. At last the Demon Lord fell, lifeless for sure. However, my vision became obscured by tears. I watched behind a veil of tears as Sam rushed over to me, wrapping his arms around me, pulling me close, and laying my head on his shoulder.
Are you okay?
I could barely even utter a no or shake my head. I buried my face into Sam's shoulder, gripping to him as the sight of Diana falling burned itself into my memory. I felt something in my soul lift and disappear, but I couldn't have cared less. I heard the heavy sound of footsteps rush towards us, but I didn't lift my head up.
Sam!
James! The boys and their wives!
Wait, where's...
Faye?
Diana and Sarah were gone.
Gone?
They fell into the sea.
Yes, Master. I felt Sam nod, still hugging me tightly. He held my head close to him as he spoke for us.
Diana saved her from that bastard's last attack. The guard jumped after her.
A sad silence engulfed the room. What could have been said? The demon lord was defeated, but the rebellion had lost its queen. For a moment, the world felt dark and cold, as if the war had been lost alongside Diana, despite the rebellion obtaining victory. I gripped onto Sam, feeling deep sadness for the entire situation. Diana saved my life, sheltered me, and fell into a seemingly endless sea because of me. Sam, feeling my anguish, tightened his embrace around me and let me bury his face in his chest. The war had ended at last, but now we didn't know where to go. At least, that's what I thought. Sam gently loosened his embrace around me and looked to the remaining rebel demons with a hard gaze. I looked up, wiping my eyes in confusion. What was wrong now?
Will you all honor her words?
Her words? Wait, she gave it to you?
What? There was more? What did Sam mean? Faye looked to her companions as they stared at Sam in shock.
Well, we don't have much of a choice, do we?
No, you don't.
We can't exactly refuse the Lord of Dragons.
He's a Lord of Dragons. I looked up at Sam, feeling completely lost. Sam looked down at me and helped me stand up before releasing my body and stepping away from me. With a sigh, he looked down at the floor. Sam?
Diana made me promise something. If she died, then...
Sam looked to his brothers in nervousness, looking over as well to see them confused, but ushering him to continue before turning back to Sam and holding his hands. Then what?
If she died, then I'd step in for the rebellion and take the throne.
James must be very happy right now. But that means he's going to lose his brother. I stared wide-eyed at Sam. What? Sam was now the leader of the rebellion? What of the others? I looked to the other rebel leaders to see them bow their heads to Sam, answering my mental question and causing me to look back at my fiancé. What about us? Would Sam leave me? Would he make me stay? Did that make me a queen? Did that mean I had to stay no matter what? We had to stay. We had to stay? What about the human world? Sam, most likely feeling my nervousness in my hands, grasped them and gently pulled me to him.
Look, I made a promise to her, but I'm yours first. If taking the throne means leaving you, then I'd rather burn it.
Sam, his eyes burned into my gaze, showing me his utter devotion. He was serious about needing to take it, but I knew that he would never leave me or force me away from him. Sam gently rubbed his hands with his thumbs and stared down at them.
So, I'm leaving the choice up to you. The Demon Lord's dead, so we can go back and live normal lives and whatever in the human world.
You're not the only one. I'm sorry, but this is totally just making me sad. Because Diana's really grown on to me. AKA Diana's the voice, AKA Michaela, AKA Diana, is the voice of Aphna's mother. She likes to use the chancla. Or we can stay and rule the demon world? Sam nodded, affirming my assumption. It was a lot to take in. I wasn't sure how to respond. The dream of me looking back to see my family and friends began to haunt me. If I stayed, I would never be able to see them again. More than that, would the demon world even accept a human queen? Would I have to become a demon or something? Sam nodded as Shadow stepped in.
Naturally, demons would never accept a human as their ruler. Besides, while it is impossible for a demon to be separated from their magic and become human, the same isn't the case the other way around.
We'd be able to turn you into a succubus, a demon of Lilith, as they were originally formed from a being who was once human before.
So I would be a succubus if I stayed, but I'd be ripping myself away from my family, my friends. Was it fair to them? Was it fair to me? What about my family and friends? Sam lowered his head as James stepped forward.
If you decide to stay, then we would be tasked with asking angels to remove any memories of you from the human world.
Suzu, Naomi, father, mother! No! My heart dropped. My parents, my friends, anyone who knew me would forget. It would be for the best, but to think what had no longer exists for them made my eyes water slightly. I wasn't sure what to say. Oh God, no! I cannot be crying. I'm really crying. I'm sorry. I'm naturally crying right now. I wasn't sure what to say. I felt myself freeze in place, unsure whether to run back into the light of the human world or stay in the dark of the demon world. I could feel the situation sink hard in my stomach, but I know I had to make a choice. Thoughts of Diana pushing me away from the Demon Lord's final attack replayed in my head, reminding me that she gave her life for me when she was meant to take up the responsibility of having the world on her shoulders. Sam gripped my hands tightly, causing me to gaze up into his eyes.
I know this is a big decision, but just know that whatever you choose, I'll be with you no matter what.
Thanks, Sam. I stared up at him, seeing an endless world of love buried within his emerald irises. He would put me first no matter what, but what would I choose? My family and friends were important to me, but this world became important too. I closed my eyes, remembering my grandfather's words. You should do what makes you happy. I opened my eyes and smiled at Sam, my heart finally reaching a decision. You know what? I'm gonna fuck it. I'm gonna hit the fuck it button. I'm staying in the demon world. This was Sam's home. This was the place Diana and the entire rebellion had fought to protect and save. My time here made this world precious to me, and I wanted to take care of it as Diana would have. Okay. My heart gave a gentle thump, letting me know that I had made the right decision. But what's okay, so from right now, what would you think of this? Sam smiled brightly and nodded. His brothers and their wives nodded, accepting my answer, but the rebel leaders lowered their heads in respect to me and Sam. I quickly turned to them and smiled, knowing that they needed me. Oh God. I'm fine, I'm not crying, I'm not being a baby, I'm fine. I quickly turned to them and smiled. So you were still listening or something? Knowing that they needed to be there and help us rebuild the world we were left with. Yes. Well, okay. We hope all of you will help us rebuild this world. Diana would have wanted that. Okay. A lump in my throat almost blocked me from finishing that sentence. It was deeply painful to refer to Diana as dead, as she gave her life for me, but the world needed a leader, and now it had a strong group of people ready to lead it. The four rebel leaders looked to each other and nodded.
We will do our best. Thank you for trusting us.
You're welcome.
What are we gonna do first? We could do all kinds of really amazing things, like rebuild the forests. No, wait, have a party. Wait, no.
Faye, quiet.
Oh, lighten up. The war is over. We have a reason to celebrate.
I smiled, happy to know that the world was in good hands. However, Faye took a breath and looked to me with a small smile before forming a small lavender-colored lily in her hands.
Before we turn you into a demon, though, since Diana is, well, She wanted to give you this.
I stared at the flower in surprise. What was it? I reached out and took it in my hands, practically feeling magic and energy run through it. It's lovely.
A flower of Lilith. But how can that be?
Yeah, how can that be?
They were said to have died out generations ago.
I continued to stare at the flower, entranced by its spell. It was such a gorgeous-looking flower. I could barely tear my eyes away.
Put it behind your ear. I think she said it was magical or something.
It is. I tilted my head before nodding and lifted it to tuck it behind my ear. As it settled against my ear, I felt mist circle my head and form into a flower crown of lavender lilies that I could see in the reflection of the remaining stained glass window. The way everyone looked at me made me feel like I was in my bridal wear already.
Whoa.
Sam.
Amazing.
I looked to Sam, seeing him grin from ear to ear at the sight of me. I blushed, feeling somehow timid with the flower crown on my head, but happy to know that I had rendered my husband speechless. However, as I lifted my hand to the flowers, feeling their soft petals, I could feel the world fade to a white color. Huh? From the direction where Diana had fallen, a figure stepped towards me, bathed in light. I covered my eyes with my arm for a moment before seeing who it was. Diana? With a smile, Diana stopped in front of me and gently ran her hand along the crown over the petals of the flowers. I stared wide-eyed at Diana, unbelieving that I was seeing her.
I have to say, I'm shocked. But I'm very happy knowing my world is in good hands.
Diana chuckled, stopping me from what I was planning on saying before cupping my chin to make me gaze into her eyes.
Promise me that you will take care of the king of the demon world. A king is no one without his queen. And in the demon world, the queen is the ultimate power.
So we rulin'. I felt tears form and drip down my cheeks, but I nodded. Something in my heart lifted as I felt with ease. With everything, I had made the right choice. With a smile, Diana! With a smile, Diana tilted forward and kissed my forehead beneath the crown before stepping away.
May you be happy with your choice, dear. And thank you.
Seto, no! Seto's there too! Diana slowly turned and began to walk away further into the light of the area. Seto, who was also bathed in light, slowly appeared and waited for Diana with an arm out for her. Diana took his hand and smiled at him before looking back at me, nodding and walking away as they both vanished into the light. The world around me reappeared with everyone staring at me in shock.
Whoa, hey. Are you alright?
Actually, no. What, huh? Actually, everyone doesn't die in the end. Just in every fucking route, Diana dies. Well, except for one. And I'm really happy about it. I quickly looked at Sam before lifting my hand to my cheek, feeling the trails of rogue tears left behind over my skin. I wiped my eyes and cheeks before nodding, laughing softly. I'm fine, sorry. I smiled brightly, taking in a breath, and looked at Sam while taking his hands. Let's rebuild this world together. Together.
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out.
Kay! Okay, hold on. I'm gonna be right back. I'm actually gonna get something to drink, because knowing me, I'm probably gonna do another route. Just for fun. And it's gonna be Diana's. I'm back. Move my rosin. Here we go.
Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise.
Yay!
Oh, crap! I'm sorry. I mean, I'm glad everything worked out, Your Highness. Did you ever imagine that you'd end up being a queen?
No. No. I never imagined that we ended up a queen. But I did.
That is so fantastic, though. Think about it. You are technically the second human to become a full-fledged demon and become royalty.
Yeah.
Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to... Huh? You want to know what happened after the war? Well, I mean, I guess I could tell you.
Tell me.
After the war was finished, the entire rebellion celebrated.
Ha ha
Word
ha.
spread far and wide about the rebellion's success, and soon every kingdom in the Abyssal Plains had become united with the new authority.
There's a hobo sitting beside one of the kids. I feel bad for them.
You would think demons would be more hostile towards each other, being demons and all, but the threat of the Demon Lord was what brought the entire world together.
Yee.
Because of the tragedy of Diana and Sero, you and Sam took up the throne of the entire demon world. You were transformed into a succubus and ruled at Sam's side. Many demons knew you were a human first, but didn't dare speak ill of you, since you were the queen and the wife of the fabled Lord of Dragons.
Yee.
Huh? You don't know the legend? Well, it's an old tale, but to basically sum it up, when a demon has a pure heart full of true strength and love, he will possess the power to conquer and consume the power of a dragon, making him the Lord of Dragons.
I would be too.
Man, guess you got lucky, huh? You're pretty much married to the strongest demon, not just in the demon world, but all 5 worlds.
Oh, hell yeah.
Anyways, you and Sam were able to bring the world together and bring about an everlasting peace. With the rebel leaders beside you to help you along the way, you both helped shape the world for a bright future.
Yay.
And I believe that is everything that happened after, well, except for your story anyway.
Yay.
Since you rule the demon world now, how the demon world runs is entirely up to you. I'm sure Sam will happily walk along with you on your new adventure. After all, while demon marriage is entirely up to you, ruling an entire plane of existence is a whole new ballgame. But I'm sure you can handle it. Huh? How do I know? Well, I'm pretty confident that you'll rock the queen thing. Take a look for yourself.
To become a demon was an entirely new adventure for me. One I was very eager to go through. The ritual involved in turning me into a succubus involved candles and lilies and magic spinning through the air in threads of power. Being that I was a seemingly endless cask of energy, going through with the ritual was surprisingly easy to do. I was allowed to keep my memories of the human world, but my skin became etched with dark lavender markings. What really surprised everyone were my horns. Instead of having one on each side of my head, I had 2, one each side curling around like ram's horns, and the second pair protruditing up like mini bull horns. Apparently, it was the mark of a truly powerful demon. I was very proud of myself for that accomplishment regardless. The wedding was even stranger, however. There were so many things involved that I could barely wrap my head around it, but the one thing I was able to remember was orbs forming in front of our chest, and an ethereal green and a lavender light connecting both. Was this the binding of souls? From that day on, I could almost sense where whatever emotion Sam was feeling, I was able to find him anywhere and know that he was alright. It became a major asset as we became king and queen of the Abyssal Plains. It took me a long period to get used to the feeling of being royalty. I had responsibilities, duties as the matrice and of an entire world, and it frightened me beyond anything. However, the touch of Sam's hands in mine always managed to dissolve my fears. However, there was never a day that went by that I didn't know what had happened before I became a demon. It was a heavy chapter of my life, one that tested the love between me and Sam. To think I was married to the Lord of Dragons, apparently. Lord of Dragons. Apparently, it was a very powerful title to own, and I had happened to be in love with the man who carried it. A title that, like that, I was sure carried a large amount of responsibility. Still, I was confident that we would get through it and stay together no matter what came our way. Demon, devil, dragon. It didn't matter to us. We were unstoppable together. The memory of... Crawford, what the hell are you doing? The memory of my own power tingled through me every time I grew confident, eagerly reminding me that I had strength of my own. I would never let anyone come between me and Sam ever again. The role of queen quickly became one of stress and moral questioning. There were always 10 or 20 issues every day to deal with, dozens more to look into, and hundreds more to simply hear about. The guest room I was once human in became an escape from my duties. While the bed Sam and I shared in the master bedroom was obviously large, I felt more comfortable in the piece of a smaller bed I had once claimed for a week. There were even times I would glamour myself human once more and simply sleep. Since demons didn't sleep, I was constantly working. But it was nice on the rare occasion to shut my eyes and let myself become lost in a dream world once more. Sometimes Sam would join me. It was adorable remembering his sleeping face, a goofy grin, hair ruffled and wild, all in all peaceful. As much as we were perfectly fine being demons, it became a treat to indulge in the feeling of having human forms, especially not having horns to adjust when lying down. Despite the danger of closing one's eyes in the demon world, I was confident that we were safe. I let the memories of my past flutter around in my mind as I lay in bed, slowly easing myself from the dream world and back into reality. When my eyes fluttered open, I could only smile at the sight beside me. Remaining in my human form just a while longer, I slowly sat up and stared at the sleeping Lord of Dragons, feeling waves of contentment and joy rush through me at the sight. As my eyes traveled up, I took notice of the lily on the nightstand. It was Diana's lily, and it was the only fresh decoration in the room. In remembrance of the past, it was in a beautiful vase created by a demon craftsman, decorating the nightstand perfectly. But because of its magical nature, it was still alive and looked as freshly bloomed as the day I received it. Despite being a bittersweet day, Sam and I cherished the lily and cared for it a lot. It was a physical memory of a strong chapter in my life. I felt blessed to have it still. I let out another sigh before gently nudging Sam. Sam, it's almost noon. Come on. When Sam didn't move, I simply chuckled. He was indeed a deep sleeper. I gently leaned in and kissed Sam's cheek, hoping to break the spell of sleep on him with a true love's kiss. It's time to get up, Sam. Come on, how come you're doing this to me? How come you're doing this to me?
5 more minutes.
There we go. I could only laugh before crawling further onto the couch and sitting beside him. While breakfast was waiting, Sam deserved to sleep a bit longer. He had been working hard as the king, so it was no surprise to see him struggle to get up. I rustled Sam's hair a bit, making him groan and push my hand out tiredly, only spurring me to laugh hard. laugh harder. As I did, Sam finally opened an eye and stared up at me, an exhausting glaze over his eyes. I covered my mouth and giggled, a bit apologetic for waking him up with my laughter. Sorry, I'll be quiet. Sam shook his head and yawned, stretching his arms up and shutting his eyes before opening them again and lazily looking up at me from his pillow.
Morning, doofus.
Morning, Sam. I think we may have overslept. Sam gave me a toothy grin before gently pulling me down to lay beside him. What, Sam? I was silenced by Sam nuzzling my shoulder and pulling me close to cuddle against my body. My face began to feel warm as I felt his warmth around me.
We'll do our duties later. I want to stay here for a while.
Yay! I took the moment in before nodding and wrapping my arms around him. Nuzzling his chest, Sam smiled and kissed my head, relaxing into the embrace. He was perfect in my arms, and nothing could have been better than being in his arms. It was like laying in a paradise. Did you have a good sleep?
Mm-hmm. You?
Mm-hmm. Only words became simple, but our embrace only intensified with love for each other. The bed became like a cloud, and the room almost lost its shape in my eyes as I could focus on with Sam.
I love you. You know that, right?
I love you too.
I mean it. I love you and care about you so much.
I look up at Sam, seeing the love he spoke of burn brightly. I look up at Sam, seeing the love he spoke of burn brightly in his eyes as he locked his gaze with mine. I felt my heart beating wildly in my chest before leaning up and nuzzling my forehead with a peaceful and happy smile. And you, oh Maurice, more than anything you will ever know. There was nothing more that needed to be said. Our love was simple, but powerful enough to move continents. Our love may have seemed plain at a glance, but with our hearts burned the flames of our devotion and passion for one another. I couldn't stop but my smile from growing before leaning in, kissing Sam lovingly, feeling him kiss back with the same amount of love and passion I had. No matter what, we would always find each other. We would always wind up back in each other's arms. We would fly through each obstacle in our way on the wings of our love. And that was my perfect happily ever after. End a new life. Bingo! There's Sam's ending. Woohoo! That was Sam's roots. Time to do Diana's. Diana's is like a really short one. But with it, you get to find out more about Diana and stuff and what happens. Yes. Be ready for a doozy. If I were you, I would watch this one. Let me know when you're watching, please. Yes, then we're going to get sexual. Not until the very end. Not until the very end. But here's Diana's.
Hold on there! Before you start the game, I need to ask you a few things. Don't want you getting lost now. First of all, have you read the first story, Seduce Me the Otome? Like, seriously read it. No skimming, no pretending to read it. No. It's okay if you haven't, but there are a lot of things in this game that you won't understand unless you fully experienced and understood that story first.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Next question. You do know this is Diana's route, right? The succubus princess that tried to bring the boys back to the demon world? Oh, awesome. All right then. Diana's a very interesting character, huh? Anyway, I have one last question for you. Some people like hearing the trigger warnings before they start games, while others don't really care and just want to play. It's cool either way, but do you want to know about some of the content listed in the game?
It's a thing I have to do since it's YouTube, so yes. Sure, thanks.
No problem. It's my pleasure. Well, this game is recommended for players ages 18 and up. Trigger warnings include suicide, war, torture, mentions of rape, and a large amount of violence and sexual content.
You have been warned.
Don't worry though, any sex scene choice you encounter is completely up to you. You can play this game without needing to go through the sex scenes and still get the good endings. Consent is important. I think that should be everything. All right. Phew, that took a while.
You forgot something.
Huh? What did I forget?
You forgot about the disclaimer.
Oh, crap! Oh, how could I have forgotten about that?
'Cause you did.
It's fine, I'll take care of it. This game was produced by Michaela Laws using the Ren'Py visual novel engine. We truly hope you enjoy this story.
Yeah, but with it, if you still have your tablet, you can get, the first Seduce Me for free.
Thanks, Diana. Now, don't you have a war?
I do. I just wanted to make sure everything was in order before the story began. I'll take my leave now.
Thanks, Di.
Do not call me Di.
Anyway, we really do hope you like the story. Have fun. See you at the end.
I was in love with a succubus. It was true. I have fallen for the charms of a succubus, and I was about to dive headfirst into the demon world with her to save her kingdom.
Do you have any regrets?
None. I smiled as Diana held me in her arms and carried us both through the night sky. We had shared a sweet kiss, the first and hopefully many in the future, and were about to cast a spell to enter the demon world. Diana looked to the ground that was far below and pointed her free hand towards it, closing her eyes.
Revitara tenebras, irato locum, pater portas.
Hello, Latin. As the last words left her mouth, a large purple pentagram appeared in the grass before, twisting and becoming a black void. I gripped onto Diana, scared or what I was seeing. Okay, I think I may switch my chair. So, yeah. So you will hear nothing. But just know when you... Well, I had to go get a new chair. This thing is not agreeing with me. I'm back. I'm now in a more comfortable chair. Just need to work on my setup now. I am wrapped in wires so badly right now.
Last chance.
Nope, that won't work. Well, shit. As the last word left her mouth, a large purple pentagram appeared in the grass before twisting and becoming a black void. I gripped onto Diana, scared of what I was seeing.
Last chance.
I gulped at the sight, not sure of what to make of this. Was this real? Was this really what I wanted to do? My curiosity, however, guided my decision and forced me to take a deep breath. I closed my eyes and let calm wash over me before looking up at Diana. Let's go. Diana smiled and wrapped both of her arms around me, laying a protective hand over my head.
Hang on.
I tightened my grip on Diana, obeying her command. As I held tight, I felt air quickly begin to rush past our bodies as Diana tilted back and began to let us fall towards the ground. Was she insane? I looked at Diana, seeing her smirk at me before closing her eyes. I did the same, naturally prepared for an impact with the ground. What I felt was a cool rush of energy brushing over my skin, as if I had fallen into water. I slowly opened my eyes and found myself staring into a vast dark space, holding onto a woman who was no longer wearing clothes. I was clinging to a woman who had no clothing, but instead had purple marks across her skin and horns adorning her head. However, I could tell that this woman was still Diana, just by looking into her eyes. Diana smiled at me and kissed my forehead before tightening her hold on me and muttering softly.
Ad Lilith Castra.
Ad Lilith Castra. That's not cool to say. I held onto her body as I felt us begin to move through the space, as if a giant fan had pushed us forward. Onward we continued through the darkness, with me unsure of where we were going and Diana guiding the way. We began to slow, and soon a small light appeared, slowly growing as we got closer to it. I had to shut my eyes as it began to consume us. I felt weightless. I couldn't feel anything except the woman in my arms, and it felt somehow exquisite. I wanted to drown in this feeling, becoming lost in it. However, our journey through the light was coming to an end. The light around us faded away, and soon I found myself lying on Diana as she lay on a stone floor. The air, however, smelled of fire and blood. Oh no! I looked up, seeing fire everywhere in sight. What the hell? This was the demon world?
Isaiah!
Zeta! A loud shout forced me to look over and see a man running at me with a spear and a rage-filled expression. I screamed and rolled off of Diana, scooting away to avoid being skewered. As he continued towards me, I screamed.
No!
I looked looked up to see Diana kneeling in front of me, gripping the man's spear, pointing it away from her. The man stared wide-eyed at Diana as she glared back.
My lady, you live?
Of course I do. I told you I would return, and thus I have.
The man gave a small sigh of relief, lowering his weapon and propping it up to lean against it. As I examined him now that he wasn't gunning for me, he was wounded and exhausted, panting heavily, and gripped his spear tightly.
I'm so glad.
He finally toppled over. Diana gasped and rushed over, kneeling beside him.
Sarah!
I rushed over as well, wanting to see what was going on. Who was he? Why did he attack me? Why was the room on fire?
Sarah, what happened?
We were attacked by the Demon Lord. He took advantage of your absence.
I began to cough violently. We need to get out of this room, wherever we are. Diana, we need to get out of here. Diana nodded and grabbed my hand and Seto's, chanting under her breath. The room around us began to shift as we were changing instead of us moving. Soon we were outside a castle, staring at it as flames erupted from each window. What was happening? Diana's face was in pure shock, staring at the castle in absolute terror. All of the color, beside of the purple marks on her skin, had faded to a pale white in horror.
We drove them back, but the flames are too powerful.
At the moment, something in Diana's eyes changed. Her anger sparked as she stood, quietly walking around us and towards the castle. Diana!
Come! I command thee, white winds! Crush these fires beneath your hands!
Yeah. I stared as the wind in the air quickly began to pick up, and a purple glow began to surround Diana's body. It was like a storm was rushing towards us, but there was no rain, no thunder. There was no rain or thunder, just wind. The winds forced back the flames that danced in the windows, and smoke began to rise from each one. Hold on. Gotta get my water. Signaling the death of the fire, the windows continued to be filled with wind and air, most likely to kill the flames deep within the walls. However, could only stare at Diana. Her body was rigid and her gaze was intensely focused on the stone castle. Soon the wind began to die out, and all that was left was smoke rising from the windows in windows to the purple, dark, black, and rising from the windows into the dark purple and black sky.
You did it. How?
Diana looked at Seto, intensively still embedded in her eyes.
Where are the king and queen?
I heard Seto's breath hitch, and I turned to look to him. He had looked of pure pain and guilt. What had happened? Diana walked over and stared down at him, now almost glaring daggers at him as she clenched her fists at her sides.
Speak, Seto!
The imp demons. While we were fighting the flames and the army, the imp demons snuck through our defenses.
My Sim had no pants on, dear Lord. My heart, despite not fully understanding the situation, began to tighten. Oh, sorry. I just listened to my mom's playing my party. Seto shut his eyes as a pair of demons, I assumed to be allies, rushed over and began casting magic over his body, closing his wounds.
They snuck into their room.
No! Diana suddenly turned and bolted towards the castle, causing me to jump up. Diana! Sorry. I began to sprint after her, following her inside the castle and trying to keep up with her. Her panicked breath kept me following her direction, despite her fast twists and turns through the ashy corridors.
No.
I could hear Diana sobbing, praying as she ran. I did my best to keep up, not wanting to lose her and not wanting her to be alone right now. We turned into a long hallway that had a pair of golden doors at the end. They were unscathed, as if the flames had not disturbed the door or perhaps the room behind it.
Please be alive. Please.
Diana bolted for the doors and began to pull them open, grunting at the weight. I stopped running, skidding forward from the broomstick. Whomever she wanted alive, I hoped they were as well. As the doors finally opened, however, the foul stench of blood erupted from behind them. The scent filled my nostrils. Gah! I hate that. Diana flung the doors open wide and could only stare at the sight we both saw. Blood. Blood covered the floor, the walls, the ceiling. The entire room was painted in gore, skin, and bone, and a massive amounts of blood. Only 3 things barely coated in red stood in the middle of the room, on the ground. 2 broken crowns and a small tear that was barely large enough to fit a newborn's head.
No.
Diana slowly walked into the room. The blood on the ground painted her bare feet as she fell onto her knees in front of the items, staring down at them. I couldn't bring myself to enter the room with her. I watched as she lifted them to her chest, curling her shoulders over herself and shaking almost violently.
Mother. What about?
Her father, mother, and her unborn sister was killed. But here's the thing. The imps took Orabelle from the mother's womb and had her. It's a mailbox in the house. Okay, but here's the thing. The father was dead, the mother was dead, and Orabelle was dead. But the thing about Orabelle, the imps took Orabelle from the womb and stabbed her, making her, and the weapon sticking into the wall, making her stay there. As the whole entire everything was covered in blood. How about imagining that? How about imagining that? As she continued to grieve over the ornaments in her hand, a dark, almost deadly and evil-looking aura surrounded her body. It began to flicker and grow like a dark flame that wanted to engulf the room she knelt in. As it reached an apex and began to violently flicker through the room around her, Diana arched back and screamed to the ceiling, her voice heavily laced with magic, pain, and rage. Yep. Watching her body burn in the intense black and purple flame-like energy made my heart stop in fear. I had never seen her like this. I was scared as to where her anger would drive her next. Stop her. As heartbreaking as the situation was, I wouldn't... As heartbreaking, I couldn't let anger consume her, not like this. If she wanted to vent her rage, then it would be better to aim it at the ones who would wronged her, not let it burn in the room where her family died. I stepped into the room, blocking the wave of energy from my face with my arm, eventually making my way to screaming Diana. Diana! My words couldn't reach her. I stepped closer, almost towering over her, before dropping to my knees, bracing myself and wrapping my arms around Diana. Her screaming stopped and her body froze within my arms. Diana quaked like a shivering child in my arms as I pressed my forehead against her hair. Good luck. Diana, we'll get your revenge, but you must save the rage for the fight. I was met with silence as my reply. After a moment, Diana finally slumped into my arms while the energy around her died out.
You're right.
Diana and I left the room with her unable to turn around and look back. We walked through the ashy corridors of the castle. Diana silenced by the sight and by her own grief. My heart was heavy for her. Still, the demon lord who had done this was still a threat at large, and who knew when he would return. Diana led the way to a room which was expected as burnt as could be. However, Diana waved her hand through the air, casting some sort of silent spell. Through some sort of prestigionant, the ash and soot in the room vanished, and the furniture and decor were repaired. We at last stepped in with Diana slowly lying down on the bed, unable to carry it any further. Looking at Diana's face, her eyes were puffy and red, while her skin almost became void of any color beyond the taint of her demon marks. Ah, shit. If she wasn't breathing, one would assume she was dead. Diana stared at the ceiling, a world of emotion swimming in her eyes. Despite what had happened, at last she spoke.
I need to send you back.
Hell no! What? Now it was not the time to think about me, and I knew it. Besides, I came here for a reason. I wasn't going to go back knowing that Diana needed support. I had no regrets in coming here, and I would help her through this. No, Diana.
It's too dangerous here.
I don't care, Diana. Diana sat up slowly and looked to me, a form of weak anger in her eyes. However, she knew that it was fruitless to argue with me. She made a deal with me that I could see the obligation to obey buried behind her anger. Diana closed her eyes and lowered her head.
The demon lord will most likely return.
And we will be ready for him. I gently took Diana's hand and lifted her chin so that she had to look at me. The anger that was plaguing her melted into sadness and broke hope as she stared back into my gaze. There were remnants of rogue tears adorning her face, and seeing her so scared made me frown. I knew that we would get through this. We just need to rest for now. We would deal with the issue this world brought after.
My lady?
Settle! Diana and I turned our heads to see Seto by the open door, and I stepped away from Diana, giving her space. Behind him, multiple soldiers, servants, and other demons rushed down the hall, most likely to check for other issues, possibly trying to fix the damage on the castle.
Yes, Seto?
Who is this human?
I am no human. I am a cinnamon roll. For a moment, I could see a disdain in her eyes as he looked to me. However, it only lasted a second as he looked to Diana, waiting for her to reply to him.
Seto, this is my guest. She came back with me too.
Diana looked to me, trying to find the words in my eyes. What was I to her? My curiosity bubbled as I also awaited the completion of her answer.
She came to aid me in this war.
But what of your fiancé? What of the other sons?
They are gone. They have disappeared into the human world, and I can no longer trace them. I have failed.
Okay, when you said, what of the sons? What of your fiancé? I was like, they're not here. Fuck them. The guilt and grief in Diana's voice deepened, most likely reminding herself that she saw the result of failing moments ago. Got a creep looking for me. Shit. Seto, however, stepped up to Diana and knelt in front of her, surprising me. What was he doing? He was a guard, first off, and why was he being held bold enough to step to her?
You didn't fail, my lady. The Demon Lord attacked us despite giving us his word that he would wait for you to return. He broke his end of the agreement.
That's true, he did.
I know.
staring at Diana and Sero. I could see that they had a very close and deep connection. Was Sero a friend, or was he something more? I could recognize the emotion within Sero's eyes as he looked up at Diana. He looked to be in love with her, or at least had some form of ultimate care for his lady. Sero gently took one of Diana's hands and placed his lips upon it. Instantly, I could see energy flow from his body into hers from the kiss alone. Was this how energy transfer work? When you weren't the giver or receiver? The color in Diana's skin returned, and she let out a sigh with her body relaxing at last. Sero, however, continued to keep his lips over her hands. Something in my gut irked me about him. Sero? Not that I was against Diana getting energy, but Sero seemed to be extremely cozy with her. And being that she was someone who I potentially wished to be closer with, this is now an obstacle I had to slowly break Diana away from. Sero's like, what? Diana and Sero both looked to me, with Sero lifting his head from Diana's hand. At least it worked. Realizing what was going on, Diana looked to Sero and smiled nervously before pulling her hand away from him.
Thank you, Sero.
Sero, however, stared at me, most likely knowing why I did what I had done. Another flash of disgust flashed in his eyes before he looked to Diana and bowed his head.
I am forever here to serve.
He does not sound happy. Sero stood and stepped back, looking at his mistress and to me.
Do we plan to retaliate, my lady?
We will. I expect the Demon Lord will come for a second attack, not realizing that I have returned.
What can we do then? Diana looked to me, a small glimmer of fear in her eyes, but her resolve rekindled, and she let a small visage cover her expression.
I will meet him on the battlefield should he come again.
Yee!
My lady, you've just returned.
That I have. But the Demon Lord will not care if he learns of my return. If anything, news of my return will spur him to attack sooner than later. I must be there and stop him.
Diana looked to Sero with a cold expression, making Sero stand up straight like the guard he was meant to be.
Tell everyone to mend their wounds and prepare for a second invasion tomorrow. I expect the Demon Lord will be ruthless enough to attack in the morning. Let everyone know as well that their princess has returned.
Yee! Sero nodded and turned to the door to do his job. Before he exited the room, however, Diana called out one last thing to him, which seemed to make him freeze.
And when you are done, please retire to my room. I will rest here for the night with my guest.
As you wish, my lady.
He does not seem happy. With that, Sero left and closed the door behind him. The way Sero answered Diana seemed forced, but I could understand why. After all, if he had feelings for her, I became an obstacle for him as I was with her. That didn't stop me, however, from wondering where I stood with Diana. Was she going to stay here with me? This was my room? Diana let out a sigh and moved to the bed to rest against the back wall of the bed.
Come, we must rest.
Yee! I nodded and locked over, lying beside her. However, instead of Diana laying down, she guided my head to rest on her lap. I am a lesbian. You're not going to sleep?
Demons don't sleep, dear. At least not in this world.
Why not?
Because if we shut our eyes for too long, then we open ourselves up for someone to take advantage of us, or kill us when we're not aware.
I gulped, not worried and frightened to sleep. Diana chuckled, however, and petted my head.
You can sleep, however. I will be resting, but my eyes will remain open.
Can you truly rest like that?
Demons and humans are different, dear. Demons can function for years without needing to rest, as long as they continually feed on energy. However, demons can rest to stop spending energy. That's why we have beds.
My curiosity began to peck at me again, but my exhaustion took control of my body. As I felt my eyes gradually shut, I could hear Diana whisper.
I hope that you don't mind me taking your energy as you sleep.
Why are you doing that? Before I let sleep consume me, I shook my head. It was all right. Diana needed as much energy as she could for whatever the Demon Lord had in mind. I felt almost a bit honored that she was taking my energy from me, as odd as it was. At last, sleep consumed me. Despite what was happening around me, the world of sleep was peaceful and calm. For the moment, I could truly be at rest. At least, for a moment. Guess what's right?
My sweet Isaiah.
Yandere! Huh? I looked around the darkness of my dream, trying to pin down the direction of Seto's voice. Why was he in my dream? There was no reason why he should have been here. The sounds of footsteps echoing in my head caused me to grip over and look around frantically. What was happening? At last, a line of darkness opened to reveal as a door open. Opening it with Cero with a kind smile on his face, staring into the dark space. What? I looked at him, but he seemed not to notice me as he stepped into the room and walked past me. I followed his walk and gasped at what he was walking towards. Diana! Now illuminated by light, I took the sight of Diana in a jail cell on her hands and knees. Weak and frail as she stared at the one approaching her.
Cero, what is happening? Why am I...
Are you talking about in real life?
Everything is just fine, my lady.
No, it isn't. My heart stopped as I watched Seto kneel in front of Diana and slid his hands between the bars to lift her chin. Diana seemed to nuzzle his hand softly and unconsciously make him chuckle.
Soon enough, I will destroy the Demon Lord and hand you the throne of the entire world. Everyone will bow to you as their queen and ruler, as they rightfully should.
Cero, I don't understand.
You may not understand now, but you will. You may not understand now, but you will in time. I promise.
No, she won't. Diana crawled closer to Cero, wrapping his hands around the bars to keep her up.
Where is she? What happened to the human?
For a moment, Cero stared at Diana, looking completely oblivious to what she meant. Hey, I'm right here! Despite knowing that what I was seeing was a dream, I expectantly called out to Diana, hoping that she would see me regardless. To my displeasure, she didn't.
Who are you talking about, my queen?
You know who, Cero. She...
Cero silenced Diana by gripping her chin hard, making her gasp and stare at him in shock.
My lady, I don't know who you are talking about.
He's a yandere, run! Diana whimpered in his hold in fright. Fear painted over Diana's expression as Cero pressed his forehead against the bars to stare deep into her eyes. I could feel myself rush at Cero and try to grab him, but my hands merely phased through his body like I was a ghost.
My lady, you must stay here for now.
Why?
Diana's single word died out as she stared into Diana and into Ceto's eyes. Something in her began to shift from red to gold. However, her black pupils slowly morphed into glowing black crosses. What was Cero doing?
Because I have not yet finished the Demon Lord, my love.
Ah, he's a yandere! My love? What's the sudden change in name? I could only watch as Cero leaned back with a grin.
Once I've finished this war, then you may come out and fulfill your destiny, with only me at your side.
Oh, hell no! fine. Staring at Diana, I watched as she began to shed tears, but they were not clear as water, but black as oil. On her chest, a black burn. She has a cross on her. A black burn in the shape of a cross appeared and glowing some sort of dark aura.
May those useless memories burn away. Remember only the one who has served you his entire life.
Seto! My words were futile, but I couldn't stand there in silence. However, as Diana's tears finally stopped, the stain on her chest drying along her skin. Seto stared into Diana's eyes, burning his gaze into them.
Now, do you remember the human?
Who?
No! No, it couldn't be. The burn in her chest flashed as a bright white aura before settling down, revealing the permanence it had over her skin. It was a real scar on her flesh, no longer a figment of magic. Seto smiled lovingly at Diana before guiding her head forward and leaning into the kiss between the bars. Diana closed her eyes and practically moaned against his lips, mostly likely feeling some sort of energy from it. However, Seto pulled away gently and made Diana pant slightly in need. Was she desperate for energy now?
Never mind, my love. Forget I said anything.
Seto ran his fingers over Diana's cheeks, causing Diana to shudder at the touch and let out a pleasured sigh.
Now rest. Nothing will harm you in here.
Yeah, right. Diana nodded before slowly laying to the side and letting her body slowly shift to slumber. With another chuckle, Seto stood and turned around.
That human's life for a stone destiny. A perfect trade, if I do say so myself.
What? I snarled and rushed at him, but wound up running through his body and falling to the floor. Seto walked back towards the open door and stood by it to look back at Diana with an almost evil looking smile.
Nothing will keep us apart anymore, is there?
Ah, no! I jumped up and ran at him, but as I stepped through and closed the door, I found myself shooting up out of bed, sitting up, panting. Gah!
What? What's wrong?
Yay, Diana's safe! I looked over to see Diana sitting in the same spot as she was when I fell asleep and staring at me with wide, concerned eyes. There was no mark on her chest and no crosses in her eyes, which made me feel somewhat relieved. I looked around, trying to see if Seto was in the room, but he was nowhere to be found.
Are you all right?
Tell her! We had to be truth. That's a good thing to a relationship. I had to tell her about the dream. I turned to her and took her hands, making Diana gasp and stare at me even more I turned to her and took her hands, making Diana gasp and stare at me in even more confused shock. I had a dream last night. Seto locked you in some sort of jail cell and wiped your memories of me, and I couldn't do anything, and...
Wait, stop. What?
Diana took one of her hands from mine and placed it on my head. Did she seriously not believe me? I glared as she stared at her hand. Stared at her hand. It's true!
I believe you, but I want to see it for myself.
I stared at her, now realizing that she was trying to take my energy from me from my forehead. Diana closed her eyes and remained silent for a moment. How would she react? As she pulled her hand away, she smiled at me.
It was a nightmare, dear. I'm sorry you had it. But I can assure you, no magic like what you saw exists, nor would Sero ever do that to me.
I stared. I could see the genuine feeling behind her words, but something in my gut wouldn't let this go. How could she be so sure that magic like that didn't exist? What if Sero was a terrible person? But what if...
Sero has been with me ever since I was a child. I would know if he was a bad person. There's nothing to...
Suddenly the door to the room burst open, causing Diana and I to separate and stare at the intruder. It was a soldier who seemed to be a runner for the army, judging from his outfit.
Princess, the Demon Lord approaches!
Diana was right. The Demon Lord was going to show up today. I looked to the far window to see the sun barely up over the oddly colored purple sky. It was morning, as Diana expected. Diana threw her legs over the side of the bed and stood, pointing to the guard.
Tell every able-bodied soldier to head for the gates. I will be there shortly.
Yes, Your Highness.
The soldier ran out, followed by the handful of soldiers that either accompanied him or were heading in the same direction. I looked to Diana, surprised to see her ready. How much energy did she take during the night? As I got a good look from her, something about her seemed to have changed, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
I have to thank you, you know.
What? Huh? For what? Diana turned to me with a smile. As she did, I could see faint layers of purple energy surrounding her form, and her eyes glowing completely gold.
You gave me a large amount of energy last night.
Her voice echoed through the room, making me internally shudder. She sounded almost ethereal at the power behind her voice, almost drowned my senses. It was as if she was no longer a simple mortal, but a goddess. How much energy did she consume last night? As energy and glow in her eyes faded away, Diana smiled. Diana gently took my hand and rushed with me out of the room, guiding me out of the castle around us. Servants and soldiers rushed in one direction or another.
I need you there beside me when I face him. You won't be hurt, I promise.
LOL, I missed a lot. You think? I followed step by step, nodding in reply. I feel a bit honored that she wanted me with her, but I shook off the excitement, knowing what I was walking towards. The Demon Lord was approaching, and he would be face to face with it. And we would be face to face with it. Diana led me through the castle grounds and onto the battlements, overseeing the distance beyond the kingdom, where a large line of creatures lined up and outlined the horizon. I felt my heart stop as the tallest figure stood between them and us. Sorry, I was shouting. It's fine. Taller than any man I had ever witnessed was a man I was meeting for the first time, the Demon Lord. The mere sight of him sent fear down my spine, but this was the man who heard Diana, so he was my enemy.
City of Lilith, rejoice! You will fall before the sun reaches its peak.
Diana released my hand and stepped between the embrasures of the wall and walked through the air towards the ground like she was descending an invisible staircase. As she did, I jumped at the sound of soldiers on the ground, pointing their weapons towards the incoming army. Diana followed, but Diana's voice bellowed through the air, causing the line of creatures to step back in fear. As her feet touched the ground, the air seemed to pulse with energy. However, the Demon Lord stepped forward with a dark grin.
Succubus, you have returned. You have failed to bring my sons home, it seems.
The Demon Lord laughed at whatever Diana had shouted, making me worried for Diana. Would she be okay on her own? She stepped forward a couple of feet before pointing her palms toward the ground. Ooh, look at that! Before my eyes, on Diana's back, the marks adorning her skin began to dance and weave before detaching themselves from her body and forming two large demonic wings. They flapped against the air in unison, causing a large gust of wind to push forward.
Soldiers of Lilith, come to my side if you wish to shed my enemy's blood.
As Diana spoke, the soldiers who had gathered at the front rushed forward and stood in two lines at Diana's side, pointing their weapons at the Demon Lord and his army. In number, Diana and her soldiers were outmatched 10 or 20-fold. However, something told me that the battle would be in Diana's favor. At my sides, a large line of archers positioned themselves and aimed at the army, ready to fire on command.
Steady, men!
Set up!
Patro 13!
Ah. Hold on. Coming! So sorry, but this I gotta go. I got stuff to do. But I really hope you enjoyed Mystical Diaries.
That's a